Hello, my name is Lars Jefferson, and I'm here to present about strategies that work project-based learning in the music classroom. So, how did I get here? This is my 16th year in the classroom, 12th overseas. I built up the program at Xi'an Liangjiantan International School from scratch. Started in 2016 with not a lot of anything, and now we have a full band choir and a very thriving system. Um, I scheduled the program so we have ensembles and general music for the MYP at XLIS. If you'd like to talk about that, I have taught PYP, MYP, and DP music, and I think hippos are awesome. So, um, when we think about music, we always want to talk about the performance. And in a traditional classroom, you go to class and you rehearse and you practice and you rehearse and you practice and you present your music. And that's pretty much been the way it's been. And that's good. It's a very effective way. But here's just another way of teaching for your consideration. Um, this way of teaching takes the students forward and you sort of just guide them instead of being the leader and telling them everything what to do. So, when you're thinking about starting a project based learning for your large class or your small class, depending on the size, you have to think about your population. So, think about the age, um, their skill, what are they good at, what are their interests, and their previous experience in your class and in other areas of your school. Um, when we're going to do a project, it has to be meaningful. It cannot just be a side note or a gimmick. So I'm definitely say it has to connect to other subjects in authentic ways, not just for fun. Um, One of the things that we do at our school is we connect to the United Nations SDGs. Those are the Sustainable Development Goals and contemporary issues. So the students can take something that's actually important today and use that for their inspiration for making music. Um, Also consider what platforms you are going to use. This will work no matter your age level or your experience in different pedagogies or electronics or whatever. So if you want to use OR for Dalcroze or Kodai, you're good. If you use Hook Theory, if you use GarageBand, um, whatever your strength is, go ahead and use it. And don't be afraid to mix and match. You'll find oftentimes that sometimes if you try different things that you weren't planning on using, you'll get an unexpected happy result. Sometimes it won't be, sometimes it will be, but this is the part of this project is about process rather than the final product. Oops. Um, so the main story here is that the students choose the theme, the topic, the media, and everything. You should be versed well enough in your media and your electronics and your instruments to be able to make this work so you can help them, but let them choose the topic and what they're going to write or sing or dance about or whatever. Um, Sometimes it's really easy. You can take a something that they're doing in their homeroom, um, like a piece of poetry or a theme like dinosaurs or the environment or whatever, and use that for your lyrics for your song. Um, First of all, I like to use the Orf volumes, especially Volume One. It has literally hundreds of songs in there. You can use those to uh, and add lyrics without having to write a whole new song for your students. Um, Now, the big thing for the when you're planning for this is once they pick it, their topics, you might want to have captains or leaders for each thing, and you got to hold them accountable because this is not a free for all. Um, they have to help them decide their role that they're going to play. What are they going to do? And once they've figured that out, you can kind of step back and let them figure it out because that's where the learning happens. They're not listening to you, they're listening to each other and wrestling with an idea on how to make music. Um, so, accountability is really paramount for this part. Um, if students cannot figure out or organize themselves, you just say, okay, you're going to do this. And oftentimes that works because they might just be a little bit overwhelmed with maybe too many choices, or they're just not self-directed enough to make a wise decision. So a lot of times when I was teaching elementary, if I had a group of students who just could not work together or work with other students, um, then I would make myself the leader of that group and do it because just we're looking at where they are as humans and they're just not ready for that. So if you just have to say, okay, we're going to do a percussion ensemble or we're going to do whatever that works, then fine. That's okay. Um, Remember that you are the guide and the expert of what works. You've got the experience. You have the knowledge. You have all the things that they don't have. So you need to be able to maybe guide them in the ways of things that do work and help them avoid things that don't work. One of the things here I wrote here is to let them struggle. That's how they learn. If they, if you can see they're on the right path, just let them deal with it. They will get it, and they will have done it themselves without an adult coming in to save the day. Um, and I said intervene to help, um, but try not to inject your ideas. So helping would be, um, okay, maybe they have the wrong mallet grip, or they've got some weird technique that they're trying to do, or they've come up with an idea that may be beyond their ability, and you might want to help them back it up a little bit. Um, One thing that I do tell in here, you will have to referee conflicts because this is part of learning too. You'll have students who'll say, "Well, I want to do it this way, and I want to do it that way, and I want to do it this way, and I want to do it that way," and you might have to step it. You're going to have to step in and help them compromise, but that is still part of the learning. And the number one thing on here is to create a calendar and stick to it. And generally, before a performance or we're going to present, they should have everything ready at least 2 weeks prior. So then your last 2 weeks of before your performance is just running the show, running the show, running the show. Now let me back this up just a little bit because I left something out here. Um, this all happens after you've taught the beginning elements that you want them to do. What I would normally do as an ORF teacher is I would teach the uh, the xylophone parts, the singing parts. We would do like a dance experiment, maybe some drumming. We would do a lot of things in advance so that they would have the song in their head and what we were going to do ahead of time. So they already know the melody, they know their parts, and then it's like, what are they going to do with it? So this is not just a free for all, but you do have to teach the beginning songs, but just give them enough so that they can be confident and run with the football and um, have fun with it. Because once they've learned the parts, they can do anything. All right, so we're moving on to agency in the middle and the high school, which is basically the same thing, but um, we're looking for more independent learning rather than maybe group learning. So again, you've taught them their basic skills that you want them to have for to complete this unit. That could be teaching the electronics, that could be teaching the instruments, that could be teaching whatever it is, the basic knowledge you want them to have. Give them enough to be able to engage in this. So once they have their idea, they can choose their theme, their topic, media, and everything. Um, and with middle and high school, it is a little bit freer because they're older, and I'm expecting them to take more chances in those areas. But again, it's not a free for all. Um, if we are performing, we want musical independence, not dependence, um, so that they become good individual musicians, or interdependence when they become good ensemble players. Um, Groups are okay if they complement each other. And I put on there avoid parasitic pairings, and by that means where where you have a group and there's just one person who's just hanging on, just wants to be a member and isn't really doing anything. Um, Generally, at this level, those kids will generally get kicked out by their peers and they'll have to find something else. But try to get everybody involved in something that they're good at. Accountability again is paramount. You have frequent check-ins when we working on a this in my class. I'm always moving around, looking over shoulders, asking them what's going on and whatnot. We want to document um, what they're doing. Some people like to have like a screenshot every day or a picture or some kind of description of what they've accomplished that day or that week. Um, and that's good because it keeps them accountable to that they're actually doing something, not just hiding behind their computer or disappearing into another room or whatever. Um, Screenshot. Also, journal entries are good, so they can talk about what we did that day and what they're going to do the next time. Um, Also, for the students, sometimes they put the cart before the horse, and they'll say, "I want to do these things," and you might have to sit down and break down the task for them. Um, Whereas they might have a great idea, they just don't know how to get there. So you might have to sit down with a group or a student and say, okay, this is where you want to do, and then show them how to plan it backwards. That's direct teaching of time and task management. Um, I say once students know your expectations, this does get easier. My first year doing it was rough because we were still figuring out each other and whatnot. But after you've done this one or two times, they actually look forward to it. They'll be like, "Yay, I'm going to music, and I get to do this, and I know that Mr. Jefferson's going to expect these things." Um, so once you've got that rapport, you can run with it. Um, Again, you are the guide and the expert at what works. You're looking at their work, and you can give them pointers. And again, let them struggle. That's how they work. That's how they figure it out. If they're on the right path, that's how they will figure it out. And again, I cannot stress this enough. Um, Try not to inject your ideas when you're helping them out, because that's their work. It's not yours. And if they, my students have kind of learned to not come to me by now, because I will just give them a laundry list of ideas and say, well, if you need an idea, here's 20. And then they let them go and play with it. Um, Stick to your calendar. Have a calendar. I usually have a formal, try to have lots of informal check-ins during the week. I like to have a formal check-in midterm and near the end of term, where we actually sit down and discuss what we're doing. Um, so when you're managing your project, I like backwards planning. Start from when you know you're going to have to present this, um, so that you can say, okay, I want to have this concert on this day or this presentation on this day. I always like to have a 2 week window before um, we actually do things, and so the actual work is due 2 weeks before um, you have to present it. Um, and also gives you time to figure out, depending on your situation, how elaborate you want to have it, with if you have lighting or sound or other logistics that you want to present, or if it's just something simple, you're just going to get up in a cafeteria uh, stage and just do it. But having more time is always better than not having enough time. Um, Finding logical places in your calendar to pause, to sit back and do a formal sit down and talk, or sit down and write to your students about what they're doing. Again, that's midterm and near the end of term for me, or before break, so they can go off at their break and feel trying to feel good about what they've done and what they've accomplished. Um, if students are not doing well, um, we have our school has what we call ATL reports. They're called approaches to learning, and so if a student has consistently missed deadlines and whatnot, um, we send home a just a reminder that says that these have done it, that they have not done it, and you might do that um, 2 or 3 times. And really, this is about student growth, that they learn um, that yes, their teacher will turn them in if they're not doing what is expected, and it also covers you, because if at the end of the term and the student say sat in your class and didn't do anything, or just didn't accomplish what they said they were going to do, you've got a record of trying to intervene with the parents, with your administration, with everybody, to make sure that they succeed. We always start from a position of caring, that we want their students to succeed, and it's not meant as a punishment, but you do need to be firm with your deadlines. Um, Also, you might have to directly teach certain things, because when I've done this, I will say this. This is really important. You'll have a good idea, and you might know what needs to be done, but do the students know what needs to be done? So you might have to do a couple direct lessons on certain on how to use certain things, on how to even with my students, how to size a photograph, because they'll take a picture from Google, or they'll have their own work, and they submit it, and it's an absolutely huge file. Um, Simple things on, like how to size your photographs so that your film size isn't too big, or your sounds are correct or whatever. So you might have to spend some time on that. So for your elementary teachers, um, I'm ORF level 3, and I love ORF and whatnot. Um, if the ORF volumes they have more than enough simple elemental melodies that you can use in those, even just with the pentatonic. So if you're looking for for little songs that might be needs of words or dance or something, there you go. You got tons. Kodai has a bunch, and you can incorporate your movement from Dalcroze as if you're a Dalcroze person. We want to see how students can best express themselves. Um, because oftentimes we might focus just on, well, we really want recorder, or we want xylophones, or we want them to sing. But we all know that our students aren't, that might not be their best thing. So when you're arranging for this kind of learning, you want them to be able to do what they can already do well. As in, this student sings well, these students dance well. So let them do it. All right, you've already spent time teaching them the melody. You've already spent time teaching them to sing, but maybe they're a good dancer, or maybe they're not good at dancing or singing or any of those, and they're great visual artists, and they would rather respond with visual art. That is completely okay. All right. Um, I believe in less is more. So if you just end up with maybe a singer and xylophones, there you go. You're fine. If it's something simple, but it's aesthetic, that is the number one thing. We are trying to give the students an aesthetic, feeling, artistic experience um, that is driven by them and their own interests. Um, Media for your high school, middle school. We have digital audio workstations. I love Soundtrap because it's online and students can collaborate online. It's just as good as GarageBand, but again, it's online, it's in the cloud, and things don't disappear. Um, Hook Theory is a great program for songwriting and teaching some theory skills. For your notation, I personally like Flat online, but there's also Noteflight and MuseScore, and I think that's really comes down to personal preference of what you would like to use. Um, Also, what works best for students? I always push towards live performance because we are musicians, we are performing artists, and that's what we do. But more recently, we've seen a lot more in videos and other recorded media, and that is completely okay too. Um, my bias is towards a live performance, so if a student writes or sings a song, I'd rather have them do it live. But if the circumstances are such they'd rather make a music video, then that's fine. Go and make a music video. Um, One thing that I've received feedback on when we do have just an audio, you've brought your people to your auditorium or wherever you're performing this, and the student gets up and says, "Here's my piece," and then there's just an audio. The audience, for whatever reason, is just not engaged. They need a visual. So even if you have just a simple abstract image or something that says, if you can just combine your video with an image, it tends to get the audience better than if it was just somebody playing a recording. Even if it's a great recording by a studio, by a student, and they've done it, they still, if you have the image, it keeps the audience engaged. Um, so for your presentation, is the goal is about student voice and choice. So when you tell um, your audience about this, and you're going to have to do some education on your audience that this is about the students. This is about their learning and about what they want to do. Um, if you're going to have a traditional ensemble, of course, if your choir, your band, or orchestra is getting up there, yes, it must be polished. You've been leading this ensemble, and if I'm standing in front of an ensemble, I am putting my stamp on it that this is ready to be performed. Student created work, media should be, because we're dealing with students. Depending on the age, we want it to be polished as possible, um, because it has your stamp and the student stamp on it that this is theirs. Will there be mistakes in a live performance if student stuff? Of course there'll be. That happens, but that's still part of the learning experience. We're talking about students, then they need to learn, and so that's why we have that 2 week break uh, before we actually present it, to give them the time so that their live performances are executed well. Um, Again, educate your audience. Why? Um, Before, during, and after, you might have to write a newsletter to explain to them um, before the concert that hopefully they will have read about this. And because most parents, if they're coming to a concert, they expect the teacher and the students just following, and there to be music and everybody will be happy. But if you're going to go with this one, you just tell them that this is their creation, and they should be proud of that their students have accomplished something with you as a facilitator rather than directing the whole thing. Um, yeah, the and that can go towards this next line here, where the students should introduce their work. My name is Lars, and I represent sixth grade music. And in this class, we've been learning lists, and we decided to do these things. And they can talk to the audience about it. That is really powerful to have a student voice introduce their work. Um, Now, sometimes students will have worked and they've worked and they worked, and it's just not going there. That does not mean it does not get assessed. I haven't talked about assessment yet, but if the student work is just like they did it and it's just not very good, or the work is could be bad, or just something you really wouldn't want to show to an audience, then don't show it. That's okay, because what you're doing is you're protecting yourself as the educator, and the student doesn't get humiliated, and they also learn that if they don't do a good job or follow the directions or stay on top of it, that their work will not get presented. So there's learning in that. Okay, now assessment is separate from the presentation. Um, I kind of like the MYP and the new DP, that's the middle years program, and the diploma program music assessment, where it's uh, broken down into three main components: documentation, document your intention, your process, and a reflection. So once your students are ready to embark on their journey here, um, they should be able to tell you what do they want to do with it, where are they going to go with it, how are they going to do it, and it can be a very brief conversation, um, or just a document that just says these are the things I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. Generally, with the younger students, um, that's a conversation. With the older ones, you make them write it down. Um, and I always let them know that their ideas are going to change, and that's okay because this is part of the creative process. But they still need to tell you where they're going. Um, the next part is the process. So they should document. They can document with photos, screenshots, sound clips, um, other ideas, um, and say that this is like day one, this is what we were doing. Day two, this is what we were doing. Um, and the older they get, the more detailed I'm expecting them to be able to articulate what they are doing, because that's about the metacognition and their ways of thinking. Um, and also, they can just document other things that are not necessarily about the art. It could also be overcoming personality conflicts and making compromises, because that's part of the learning. We're teaching them not just music, but also how to be um, human beings. Then finally, the reflection is, did they accomplish it, and how well did they accomplish it, and what could they do better next time? That's pretty much something any elementary or middle school student can do. With the older students, you can have them, and I got this from the MYP personal project. Have them create their own timeline and their own criteria ahead of time. So it says, these are the things I'm going to do. These are my dates that they are going to be done by. And here you go. And then they have a document to compare themselves to when they get to their reflection, to see if they, met their own expectations, or met their own calendar dates. Now, since we're still dealing with students, even the older students, um, they probably won't meet their own deadlines, if they even had their own deadlines. But that's still part of the learning. They have to learn. It's like, well, I thought this thing would take a couple hours, but it took a couple days. And that's all about them really learning how to gauge themselves and their own abilities and what they're going to do with it. And also, as a bonus, if you really get into documenting all the intention, the process, and reflection, that is really a good practice for the new diploma music program, because the process journal is all about um, intention, process, and reflection for the DP music. Just to leave you here with some possibilities. Um, you want to combine music, dance, media, using the strengths of your ensemble. So sometimes you might have a student who's not a great performer, but they might be a great artist, and they can create some brilliant artwork with music. So let them do it. You have students who might like to dance, and let them dance, because we are trying to create an aesthetic experience for our students. Um, I've always found sort of inspiration for writing music kind of hard. So try to address real world issues. It can be something in your school. It can be something in their class. It can be something outside of school. Um, if you want to go big, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are a good place to start. They're broad. They're um, well written, and gives a chance for the students to maybe investigate those in another class, and then advocate for, um, say, better environment or free speech or whatever they're writing about in music. You can combine music and visual arts. I have a great collaboration with my visual art teacher here in Xi'an, but you can also incorporate any other subject, and then try to find a way to get music to see how we can look at these areas, or advocate or investigate, say, historical periods through music, or advocate for a contemporary issue. And here I have the link, and I'll put this in the description for the for XLIS. Last term, for spring term, had a we were all completely online, And so all these projects that are under this link at this website were done completely online. Um, Most of the time, actually none of the time, we were at school. So um, this can all be done online. Even though we probably don't want to do it online, it's doable. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and I will gladly talk shop. Have a nice day.